Sweet. Well, welcome everybody. I think we're going to have some more people come in just a few minutes, but we'll go ahead and get started with our intro here. Welcome everybody to the September 10th Advocates Network meeting. Let's just go through some housekeeping stuff first. All right. So welcome in the chat. As always, please share your name, personal pronouns, what city you're zooming in from, and your organization or school that you represent. My example is at the bottom there. Ben Robinson, he, him, Denver, Great Education, Colorado. All right. Great Education Colorado's vision is through public education, every Colorado student, regardless of their zip code, learning needs, language, identities, or the color of their skin, graduates prepared to lead their best life. And accompanying that, our mission, Great Education Colorado harnesses the power of grassroots activism and diverse, inclusive networks to guarantee that public schools in every Colorado community are welcoming and adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. Right. Our goal, as always, for the Great Education Colorado Advocates Network is to create a space for us to build community and take action together. I think we're on year 3 of that, and thank you all for partaking. I think we've done a fairly good job so far. All right. As always, GEC Advocates Network meets the second Tuesday of every month from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. I will drop that October link in the chat in just a couple of minutes when I finish sharing my screen. And our community commitments, move up, move back. We all have something to say here. I know that, and you all are wonderful contributors, but let's make sure that everyone who has or who wants a chance to speak has a chance to speak. Number 2, no one knows everything, but together we know a lot. Let's learn together. We all come here with different perspectives. We were all once students. Some of us are former policymakers, school board members, just active people in our communities. So let's listen to each other and learn together. And then number 3, presuming positive intent, but acknowledging our impact. We're all here for the same thing, which is to improve the lives of students and teachers, especially through education funding. And some of us get very hyped sometimes and into these conversations. But if we say something that ruffles another person's feathers or offends, we want to make sure to take care of that quickly so that we can get on to our main goal here. All right, so 2 weeks tomorrow, the special session wrapped up. And I assume that a lot of you were listening in, reading about it. So we want to get some of your initial reactions to what happened in the special session, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the session itself and do a quick recap. But I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick, and I will open it up. Let's just hear some reactions to the special session, and then we can go ahead and move on to talking about it a little bit more. And I will go ahead and drop the link for the October meeting in the chat.
I'll say something. I was very happy that those 2 initiatives were pulled, but I'm concerned about what these cuts are going to do to the funding for the services that we were initially worried about with 50 and 108. So I haven't heard what that impact is now with these cuts to, the school districts, the police, fire. So there's a concern of mine.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. And we do know what those cuts are going to look like for schools, and we'll get to those just after this. The short of it is they're not good, but that we did, as you said, avert a pretty terrible crisis by taking 50 and 108 off the ballot. Others?
Just a little bit of what you said, Jerry, but I really concur with what you said. I believe that we could have defeated 50 and 108 and been able to change the narrative, letting people know that Coloradans actually do understand what taxes pay for, and there's a limit to the cuts that they want. It was extortion It's concerning what it means in the way that Colorado runs it, that the state is run. It is great that we don't have to worry about 50 and 108 because they would have been catastrophic. But you know, we gave away over time hundreds of millions of dollars that we could have used to support our schools. So it is deeply frustrating.
Lisa, could you just clarify real quick what you mean by extortion in the process?
The fact that some out of state, or some out of state, some in state, but wealthy interests put these measures on the ballot, and I think they didn't want them to pass. That the business community was very divided, but the whole idea was to make sure that the legislature gave property tax relief. They did that in the regular session. That wasn't enough, and then they just it was this: if you don't cut property taxes more, if you don't legislate in a particular way, you know, it would be a shame if something would have happened to your budget. So I think that I'm referring to.
Gotcha. Thank you, Lisa. Any other opinions, observations on the special session? Well, cool. Let's move into a very brief recap of what happened then. I think we covered a lot of it here already, but there are a few more details to add in. So basically what happened is that Governor Polis wound up signing HB 1001, a round of what the Colorado Sun called modest tax cuts. That's in scare quotes there, because while they look modest on paper, they're still pretty disastrous for public education. So this deal comprises cuts to residential and commercial, and limits how fast property tax can grow. So the exact number there is that there's a local cap of 5.25% per year. So that's annual growth. And that public schools are going to lose about $120 million annually. And that's going to equate to an average of $70 in savings per homeowner per year all over the state, which sounds a lot like something in our Constitution called Tabor, right? Limited savings for a really nasty, harmful effect for schools all over the state. And as Lisa already said, a lot of prioritization of concerns of outside groups. So Advance Colorado being allowed to really lead this process and get what they want through the legislature, and really kind of, again, circumvent the will of the people in Colorado. Moving on, our Learn portion today is going to be about keeping public dollars in public schools. And what that means right now is advocating to defeat Amendment 80. We've been talking about that under the name of Initiative 38 or 138 for the past couple months. It is now officially has its name as it will appear on the ballot. So Amendment 80, this is the text right here. Notice how broad it is. So it establishes the right to school choice for children in K-12 and declaring that school choice includes neighborhood, charter, private schools, homeschooling, open enrollment options, and future innovations in education. Now, the curious thing here, and I'll get to you in just a second, Ronnie. The curious thing here is that parents really already have this right. They can send their kids whatever they want. So why does Amendment 80 exist? Duran, go ahead.
That's what I was going to ask. Having a child that's still in Denver public schools, we have the right to choice. And so I don't understand why they're trying to word it as if, you know, they want to put it in the Constitution. That just sounds sneaky and underhanded in the first place. But also, you know, in all of these pieces of so-called legislation or initiatives or whatever, amendments, it almost sounds like what they've done in Arizona, where they've gone towards a voucher system and they want to make it where, you know, private schools and homeschooling get access to public dollars. That's what it sounds like to me.
And that's exactly what it sounds like to us too. And I think sneaky and underhanded are two great words to describe this. So let's go back to that question then. So why Amendment 80? Well, Amendment 80 is what we call a gateway to privatization. So it is expanding the right of parents, although we'll learn in a couple of minutes, it's not really the right of parents, it's the right of schools to choose their students, to quote unquote choose to send their kids to whatever schools they want to, whether they are private schools founded in a really sketchy way with no legal guardrails and no ways for students who are discriminated against to take action against those schools. And this is all a page out of the Extreme Rights Playbook, and that's what we call defund, distract, and privatize. So the first thing is to take money from public schools with an amendment, or to allow the taking of money from public schools with an amendment like this, because when we direct money to a quote unquote voucher system or the mass privatization of schools, we're necessarily taking money from public schools, right? From that general fund that we have in Colorado. And we're also distracting from the problem here, the real problem here, which is that public schools are not adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. So they don't serve the needs of our children to begin with, but they're supposed to serve those needs, and they can if we take the right actions. And then the last thing is to privatize, which is something we've already mentioned. It's to make schooling an industry, right? To take it away from the public where it's supposed to be, where it best serves our children, and to hand it over to private entities who are, again, free to discriminate, free to choose, to allow schools to choose their own students. And that causes many harmful effects, right? So we've seen this story in Arizona. If y'all were here, I think it was like 3 months ago at this point, we had Beth Lewis from Save Our Schools Arizona. She's the executive director of that organization. And a couple of years back, Arizona implemented what they call a statewide voucher system. And the effects of that are similar to what we think the effects of Amendment 80 would be in Colorado, which is one, that this voucher system is far more expensive than just funding public schools outright. The estimations for the costs are always low. We saw that during her presentation. As you can see at the bottom there, $175 million from Arizona taxpayers are just sitting in ESA accounts. So those are quote unquote education savings accounts and not being used. That is money that otherwise would be used to fund services, to pay teachers, all of those things that make public schools function, right? And that also at the bottom there, parents of private voucher students spend over $1 million a year on public money buying Lego sets. That's just one example. We talked about parents who are allowed to buy pools for their children, skiing passes, trips to various places, all under the idea that this is somehow enriching their education, right? And that it costs Arizona $332 million to pay for vouchers, subsidizing private school tuition and homeschooling. That's an enormous amount of money. And again, that's all public money, right? That's all money that we are paying for, or that we are putting into this pot, and that is being diverted to fund private schools. And one of the upshots of that I already mentioned is that while we already have very segregated schools in this country and in Colorado, they become even more segregated when we introduced private funding to the mix, because those schools are then allowed to choose who they want and don't want. In the public schooling system, students and parents have legal recourse for that, even though it doesn't always work. But in the private system, we're putting in public dollars and to fund schools that do not supply those systems, so they can discriminate willy-nilly against disabled students, students of color, LGBTQ students, which obviously creates an even bigger problem we already have, where those students face discrimination in classrooms today. The good news is that Coloradans are pretty averse to Initiative 80, and they have been for some time. So this slide right here shows the uninformed ballot test for the following question. How would you vote if this question were on the ballot in November? So that previous question we read on the slide. So the text of Initiative 80 or Amendment 80 is what we're talking about. This is a poll conducted by Magellan Strategies. And this is what the uninformed ballot test, so not the people reading the text of the amendment, not knowing anything else about the context of the amendment, this is how they respond. So total no against it is 37%, total yes is 49%, and 14% undecided. Now that doesn't look great, but when we educate people about the initiative, when we give them information about what it would actually do, changes drastically. Now we have 57% of people who are against it, including 45% of people who say definitely no, reject, as opposed to the previous slide where it was 25% of people. So that's a 20% increase. That's huge. Now we're down to 11% unsure and 32% yes, as opposed to 49% yes, right? So what this shows is that education on this initiative matters immensely for people's decisions, and that when they have that information, they don't like what they see. All right, so how do we stand up against it? I'm going to turn it over to my executive director, Lisa Weil, to talk a little bit about the resistance.
And I want to apologize that I am dealing with hybrid world and I have to be driving to another event, so I am not on camera at the moment. But the no on Amendment 80 campaign has begun. You see there the homepage. It's, I believe, protectourschools.co, not .com, but .co. And it is starting off, not surprisingly, the infrastructure of it is being provided by the CEA at the moment. So we will be working closely with them. They will, so you can go to that website, you can let them know that you are going to oppose and you can sign up to volunteer. But I also want, one of the main ways that we're going to be working to prevent this from passing is Public School Strong. And many of you have already been trained in the Public School Strong. Sorry. So if you go to the next slide, Ben. Public School Strong is a national campaign that provides national resources to organize locally. And many of you did attend our last Advocates Network was the national training for Public School Strong. This one, and I hope you can use the QR code, and we'll put the link in the chat as well. This is specific to Colorado, and the goal is that we will create teams in districts all around the state, and it's one of the things that because we're really focusing on this, we're really focusing on 138. It gives us Amendment 80. It gives us a rare opportunity to really build using this powerful online technology of being able to invite people to various events. It invite people to be part of your team. Incredibly easy, and I am now wishing that I had put a couple of slides about that in this PowerPoint. But what we'll find, sorry, I stopped. You can go to the next slide, Ben.
Hey, Lisa, you're breaking up a lot.
That's okay. I'm gonna stop my video and hope that helps. But the training on its next Monday is going to.
Hey, Lisa, I'm gonna take over for you for a second. It's breaking up pretty bad.
I'll drive somewhere else that's better coverage.
So gotcha. So I'll fill in for Lisa while she's finding a new spot real quick. But there are, as Lisa was just talking about, there are these monthly public school strong orientation meetings. And some of you on this call attended last month's meeting. The one for this month, I believe, is actually going on right now. But we have more coming. There are more coming up. So there's one every month. And basically what they do is they employ this national framework. So starting a grassroots team, wherever you are, whether it's your school district, it can be your neighborhood, it can be your city, inviting people to join that team, and then focusing on local engagement and organizing, specifically school board meetings, to affect change at the local level and to sway policymakers to adopt one stance to the other, and also to make this effort visible to voters, right? So some things that we learned during these meetings are how to observe school board meetings. So different things to look for, like certain language that school board members use that might tip us off to something they believe that's bad for schools, or maybe they're amenable in some way to adopting the things that we want them to and acting on those things. We also learn how to draft school board resolutions. Lisa has an example of one of those that we can share with you all. So requesting, them to take a stance on a certain thing. And then also to fight against anti-public school initiatives, which is mainly what we're doing. That's the part of the framework that we're applying to Initiative 80. So organizing people at the local level to talk to school boards about Initiative 80, its harmful effects on schools, students, and teachers, and getting them, those governing bodies themselves, to develop a plan of action, to talk to their constituents, things of that sort. Lisa, are you in a better place currently?
You'll have to tell me that.
It sounds good. It seems like you're in a better place.
Okay. So if you can go to the next slide, I believe. So we wanted to take a minute for those of you who did attend last month's our advocate network was the Public School Strong, and we'd love to hear what folks think about that. That will help us make sure that this orientation that we do next Monday specifically for Colorado can be really well tailored and addressed if there were concerns or questions, to make sure that this is going to be the best possible training. So any thoughts? Can you raise your hand if you attended? And then if folks want to just say what worked, what concerns do you have, and what hopes do you have from this having access to this pretty remarkable technology?
We'll go Christy and then Jerry.
I was on, and it was informative, for sure. I guess rather than referring to it as a training, orientation is a better word for it. I think there was a lot going on that I kind of felt like, oh, but I don't know where I fit in this, because I don't have kids in school anymore, and we just moved, so I don't have a school board to go to. And so I kind of felt, oh, well, I'm supposed to commit to go to a school board meeting, but I don't have a school board meeting to go to. So I think I didn't sign up for everything that I would have and have since, because I've learned much more about it since. So I was glad to have the additional information.
Is there just a follow-up question, Christy? Is that what of that additional information do you wish had been included in the actual training?
I think when we discussed more about Colorado, I think doing a Colorado training is going to be really good, because we talked a lot about Tennessee and North Carolina, and that's great. And the success stories are great. But, and I think the fact that people can be included in other ways other than going to a school board meeting.
I think that makes sense. And that's something I observed too, is that, there are other avenues to affect change besides school board meetings, I guess. And it'd be nice to know sort of how those have been worked out in other states. Jerry and then Jan.
So having been involved in CEA for, oh my God, 50 years, a lot of this was not new because, obviously we're very involved in school board meetings and stuff. But what I see here in Colorado, like with Initiative 80 and the potential when 50 and 108 were on, is these are state issues, not local issues. And while a school board could say, we're opposed to it, I don't know how much weight that carries. It's when we go out and educate the public. I think school boards sometimes have to be careful with politics. So I think you got to look at it. Okay, is there a local issue like a book banning or, bathroom issues or something like that with LGBTQ issues that we need to go to school boards? But stuff like Initiative 80, I think is more a broader issue because it's statewide.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think, where we stand on that is that this platform does allow us to broaden our scope. And Lisa can kind of talk more about that in relation to the Initiative 80 training in a minute. If just for clarification, but I do agree there. I think, there's definitely more of a focus on how this kind of strategy can influence local issues, and book bans in particular were talked about. Jan?
Yeah, I was there. They ask you to join a local or a state unit, and that's where I'm thinking the power might come from, because we don't have to talk about national things every time. We're going to organize ourselves is what I'm hoping for. I don't think I have a local unit, but there's a Colorado unit to be involved in, and I guess it's up to us then to carry this out. But I also want to say I got a t-shirt today and it's got their logo on it. So if they want us to go to school board meetings and wear them, it might teach somebody else who these people are, who this, organizing group is. So that's it.
Thank you, Jan. Back to Christy.
I just wanted to add one thing after listening to Jerry. I think the value of this is that it gives us the ability to put together local teams and communicate to those teams and educate them on statewide issues while helping them with any local issues that they're dealing with. So I think that's where the power lies.
I think that's a great point, Christy. Ronnie?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to go or anything, but it sounds like kind of what y'all are talking about in terms of going to the school board meetings. Are we talking about like local school board or state school board? That's what I'm trying to get clear on.
That is a great question, Ronnie. And it's and just to play on this, and Ben, I don't know if you can pull up just switch over to showing the public school strong website, maybe going to Greeley. Since I'm on my phone, I can't do it.
Yeah, let me try to find that real quick.
Okay, thanks, Ben. There are times that we could be going to the state board. For this, it really is who we're talking to is the voters, right? We're trying to get to voters to say no. The going to a school board, and when Ben pulls this up, you'll see we created a petition that we could be done in all different communities, all different school districts, to ask the school district to take a resolution, like you were suggesting, Jerry. The power doesn't come from getting the school board necessarily to oppose the ballot measure, although it would be really good to be able to make sure that the local paper, if one exists, knows that they took that stand. And so you're publicizing that. But the other point is that we're able to connect folks with local people who agree with them, who otherwise may not, know how to get involved. And so when we say, hey, here's a petition, you can sign it, you can print they're print outable. And so you can, people can go to book club or to the pick up at school and get people to sign this saying, hey, all we're saying is we don't like this ballot measure and we want our school board to help stop it. And then you've gathered a whole bunch more people. You've got more names of people who are involved in your community. And then once we have that, think about the power of that when we're gathering signatures again. That we have this distributed organizing tool so that we can start whether it's petitioning, or we can tell people about how to contact their legislator about a particular thing. This is the beginning of the infrastructure for a movement for public education, a durable movement. So it does seem like, yeah, do we really need to get the school board? Is that a big deal? If that's not something you want to do in your own community to get the word out, then that's not what you should do. But if it's just a concrete thing that can get people to very simply, there we go. Okay, and so go to join.
I was going to also say that with Denver Public Schools being one of the largest districts in the state, I guess I think of it from the space of, if I'm going to do grassroots, I need to educate the people. And if I'm going to educate people, I need to educate people within my community. And a lot of the people within my community are not necessarily with Great Education Colorado or different things like that. A lot of them are just in the community and they want to be able to vote. But I feel like in terms of them voting a certain way, they need to understand what it is and what the things are that are at stake, if that makes sense to you all.
It absolutely does, Ronnie. And this tool makes it possible for us to be able to communicate with more people about issues that they care about, which frequently are local. If you want to talk about the local impact of statewide issues as well, that you start off by saying, hey, there's this thing that's on the ballot that would start putting public dollars, that could start putting public dollars in private schools, and that will only hurt our schools. Would you like to just sign that petition? And then when you do that, you'll be able to stay informed. And so that people will now be a part of this, of your local your local chapter, which means that you can keep things tailored locally, because that's the problem so often, is that it's hard to connect the dots. So this is not the end all be all. It's not perfect, but once we get people to maybe sign on, doing the first simple thing, which is signing a petition, then we'll be able to say, hey, there's a postcard party in your community. We'll be connected to the No on 80 campaign. And if they are doing a texting party, if they are doing a canvas, if they're doing anything else, we will be able to just tell people, here are easy ways to take action. And that takes us through Amendment 80. And then after that, that's when we can use this powerful tool to start communicating with people about, hey, did you know that there's an adequacy study, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes. There's an adequacy study that is talking about what kind of resources are necessary to meet the needs of all of our kids. And we need the legislature to take that seriously. Here's an easy way to do that. So this is sort of putting our organizing on steroids. And I will unabashedly ask and hope that all of you will sign up. If you can't make it to on the 16th, there'll be other ways that we can get you connected. Just let us know that you want to be connected. But this is an experiment that, if it works, is going to change the way we or just create a quantum leap of the way that we can empower people to take action collaboratively.
And
Um,
something that I wanted to say real quick, just to add on to what you're talking about.
You know,
The folks that are on this call, we have to remember the BIPOC community. We have to. That's
Yes, yes,
something that
yes.
I don't see very often at all. We have to remember the BIPOC community because their votes count just as much as anybody else's. And when we forget about them, we're forgetting about a whole swath of folks that their children attend public schools. So we have to remember that.
That is absolutely right. And you, the thing about being a part of this is that you become the ambassador to your community. And I'm speaking to everybody, whether it's a geographic, a demographic community, you become somebody who can get people involved very simply. And Ben, you can just take that off if you don't have your login. So, and Ben, if you can log in your own, we'll be able to go to Greeley. But once there's a page, once you have a page, Christy, Christy is Adams 12, and DJ has taken on Pooter. Once you do that, there is a simple way that you just push an invite your friends thing, and you can just write people notes, tell them why it's important, get them involved, and all they're doing is just getting to a place where they can be informed. And hopefully more and more people will become, get engaged. But Ronnie's point is critical, that people need to hear from people in their own communities who they trust. And then everything can be tailored for your own particular community. And there can even be, there could be public school strong, retired teachers. I mean, it doesn't have to be a geographic chapter that gets started. And this is how, if you think about the power of being able to communicate with everybody in your own network, and then because they're connected to the Colorado network, for us to be able to tell everybody at any time, hey, there's a petition, or we need you to think about, we're looking for input about what our public, what our ballot measure should be, or there's going to be something in your town, in your area that you need to know about, and you can help get people there. This is just, it's like just a technology that makes old time organizing of friends to friends and people who know each other being pulled together. And that I think Ben just put the link in the chat. Would love for you to share this on your website, on your Facebook pages, and on Insta, or wherever you are, for people who are your friends to say, this is really important. I'm doing this. Consider it. If you don't like vouchers, if you think that public dollars should stay in public schools, and you can and you can email this to individuals as well. But this is that hard. It's the hardest part of organizing made a little bit easier because of the technology, because of being able to click and put something on Facebook. I'm going to stop talking and ask for other questions and see if this does feel, does this feel like something tangible? If not, what can we do to make this really connected?
Kathy?
It seems to me, I'm going to bring it back to now instead of going out into the future. It seems to me this is an opportunity to do a little bit of education with the people that we know and interact with about the fact that this is about state funding. Right now in Loveland, we're going to have a bond and mill levy petition on our ballot here, and people, I don't want them to mix up the two or see what the connection, or where there is not a connection between these. So I think this is an opportunity to help educate the voters in our own communities. I
think that's a great point too, Kathy, and it can be used. I mean, it's public school strong, if you build a community, as long as you are staying with a commitment to public education, the Adams 12 chapter could also tell people how to get involved in the MLO campaign. And, that this is, here's social media that we hope you'll post on your Facebook page about Amendment 80 or about our local MLO. So we're just creating like this pipeline, like this network of plumbing is the wrong word, but it's about being able to communicate with each other, and hopefully by doing this, it will, and Kathy, I always do go to the long term, but you're absolutely right. There's immediate need for this right now. But in the long term, this is the kind of thing that can help prevent burnout in communities where there are just 3 people who go and they do the MLO, and there's no coordination anymore. And then 2 or 4 years later, you got to start it all again. And the people who did it the first time are like, I can't even think about doing that again. This is actually creating something durable.
Any others before we move on to the adequacy study and taking some action?
All right.
Well, thank you all for your, oops, Martha, go ahead.
I just, before we get on, I wanted to hear more about what Krista posted about the committee to support candidates for the State Board of Ed who support school choice. So that to me implies that we're going to have to be fighting this whole Amendment 80 thing on a couple different fronts, that it's going to have to do with candidates for the Board of Education as well. And we have some very good candidates running, but I don't know, and you think, oh, they won the Democratic primary from Boulder, so they're going to be fine. But I don't know what it looks like for the statewide people. It seemed to me too significant to just pass over.
Thank you, Martha. I'm Krista, and I'm actually running in Congressional District 4. And so this is really concerning to me. As the candidate from Congressional District 4, I'm obviously pro public school choice, but taking public dollars and using them in private schools is absolutely not okay. And I already ran on that proposition once in 2017 and represented our Douglas County School Board and ended the private school voucher program they had. But I'm just really concerned that I'll just be honest. I'm running a tough race in CD4, and I think it's really important to have a strong pro-public education majority on the state board. So in part, I'm just looking for support of my campaign, since we have groups forming to support those other folks like my opponent, who's the vice president of Advance Colorado, who's supporting this constitutional amendment. I'm just wanting this group of amazing pro-public ed supporters that are sitting in front of me to be aware that they're also looking to take the state board. And so it's a plea for help, not personally really, but just for the state board to have that pro-public ed majority. So thanks for looking at that.
Thanks, Krista and Martha. And I just have to, as the executive director of Great Education Colorado, say that Great Education Colorado does not endorse any candidates, but we can, and we've worked with the League of Women Voters on this in the past, we can recommend questions that should be asked at forums and that should be demanded of candidates about where they stand on not just choice and private choice, but also where they stand on fighting for better funding and more equitable funding of our public schools. So again, we do not endorse any candidates. We are nonpartisan, but asking the right questions is critical to make sure that voters know where folks stand on these education related issues.
Yeah, that's what I think we can do. I mean, as be a public education voter, is ask the candidates, that are running for the State Board of Ed from your district where they stand on Amendment 80.
And I
That's all
appreciate
you have
that.
to do. you
I
know.
appreciate that so much, Lisa. And I would just say that nobody's asking us those questions at a forum. There's not a single forum that's been scheduled. So I am so happy to be filling out 411 survey for League of Women Voters, and also one for the Denver Post. But you know, it really is going to take more than that when we are facing a committee of big money, dark big money. So I would plead that you would, you know, tweet to Kyle Clark and ask them to have a debate in CD4 for our congressional candidates and our state board candidates, because it's important. So, and I totally understand that Great Ed and this cannot endorse. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a quick question, and Ms. Wilson, I'm sorry for stepping in front of you, but I know that somebody mentioned at the beginning something about Moms of Liberty, and I'm wondering if any of the people that are in that group are trying to run for office, because that's an important thing to know.
I don't know that anyone who is running for the state board are directly Moms for Liberty, but there are people who are probably very closely aligned. And what we really need to look at is in 2025, there will be elections in every school district for the board. So that's that for whatever reason, we do school board elections on the odd numbered years. And so we will be very active in getting people to answer questions about that. But Ronnie, we absolutely believe that Moms for Liberty and other organizations that they coordinate with are recruiting and preparing candidates to do real damage to equity policies and real damage to marginalized kids. And so once this election is done, we'll be looking at that too. Again, not endorsing, but making sure that people are really thinking about who should be running in their communities and how you can get started. You know, just thinking about creating a pipeline of people who will be fighting for equity in their school boards for decades to come.
You know, I'm going to interrupt as well. And Kathy, I also apologize. We had a slate in my previous school district. I was in the Gunnison School District for 30 years. And we had a slate that we defeated last November, basically doing the kind of organizing that we're talking about with Public Schools Strong. And we had people, you know, with our t-shirts, and at critical moments, we attended all the school board meetings during that time. And then the group got people to run against this slate, and our people won. And it's important, and that's why I see this organizing tool as being one of those things that we can utilize to pull people together and keep them together, because people stay because there's something they can do. And as we know, with school funding, whether it's state or local, there's always something you can do. So anyway, I'm sorry, Kathy, I just
wanted to say that the league right now is gathering questions for their local candidate forums and broader. So, you know, if you have specific questions, you might want to contact your local league members about that, and know that Vote 411 will go live on October 1st. And so we've asked candidates questions that we are hoping that they fill out, you know, that they respond to, so that we can post them. And that's a good way for voters to do some of these comparisons to make choices on who they're going to vote for. So I encourage you to be involved that way.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there any way you could send a link my way that I could send people where they could send those questions or contact somebody who might receive them?
I'll send you somebody's name and email address, but you know, this is happening in all 19 local leagues right now. So as they prepare for candidate forums, as well as the state level forums. So you can go to just Google League of Women Voters and see where your local league contact is there as well. But I'll send that to you.
Great, thank you so much.
Mhm.
All right, so we are approaching the last 9 or so minutes of this meeting, and we still have the adequacy study to talk about. So we are going to pivot to that subject right now. So we are currently, well, the adequacy study is actually currently going on. It's something we've been talking about for the last, some number of months, dating back into 2023. And the real question that the adequacy study answers, the big question is, what would full funding look like? I think we've talked about this a lot before in other contexts, and most of the times it's in the context of ballot initiatives or when we're talking to legislators, and it's sort of like one big number, this daunting big, thing that we talk about, and we never really get much into specifics. And we never really talk about not as often as we should. We don't talk about who's directly benefiting from that. And moreover, what the resources are that we need to define for where that money's going, right? So I'm going to turn this over to Lisa to talk a little bit more about the adequacy study, what's going on now, and what we can do right now and in the future to move this process along in the best way possible.
Great. So, as Ben said, people think about, well, what would it take what is the dollar amount that it would take to fully fund our schools? That's not really the issue. And that is not what the adequacy study is going to be looking at. The adequacy study is doing panels and research all over the state right now. There are 2 different vendors doing it. And what they're trying to get to is, what are the resources necessary to make sure that every student, taking into account where they live, their learning differences, what language they're starting out with, what their economic situation is. We have, as a state, have said that we need every one of those students to meet standards. And so the question is, what's the right class size? What's the right, how much would getting the good curriculum, the technology needs met, for different kinds of learners having special support? What are those resources? And then, yes, they're going to price it out. We're focusing right now, and we'll continue focusing on full funding, because we are still hearing about people on both sides of the aisle saying that we're fully funding our schools, and including our governor, who said it at the CASE convention a couple months ago. So what really is full funding? That's what the adequacy studies are going to find out. Right now, there is can you go to the next slide, Ben? I don't remember what it is. Right now, so I said there are 2 different organizations who are doing this research, because the state passed a law saying that they wanted to have 2 different studies doing it, to make sure there are 2 different groups doing it with different methodologies, to really satisfy everybody, to say, look, this was studied by a lot of different groups in a lot of different ways, and here's the resources that we need. Both of them, first is the AIR, have already got this survey going. AIR has this survey. That's what that QR code is. It takes 5 or 10 minutes. But it is really asking you, even whether you are connected to a school or not, what do we need our schools to be, or what do we need our students to be able to do? What do our schools need in order to meet that standard? And what do we need to do for our schools to be what we want them to be in our communities? So I highly encourage, once again, highly encourage you to go and take that survey. There will be another. It's coming from APA, which is a local organization that has done adequacy studies all over the country. They did the study for the Lobato lawsuit over 10 years ago. And so we're going to ask you again. And so I'm telling you that now, so that you're not like, didn't I just do this? The answer is yes. There are 2 different ones. And please, again, share this with your friends. Share this with your organization. There is every Colorado, every person who lives in Colorado has a stake in this study, and so it's really important. So we'll hope you'll continue to do that. And in the future, what you're going to hear us talking about is the Fully Fund Our Schools campaign that will really launch in November after we know who our new legislators are, asking our legislators, do you think our schools are fully funded right now? And will you meet with your constituents about what the adequacy study says about our district? So that's what we're going to be leaping to as soon as the election's over. And again, going back, go to the next slide, Ben.
Hey, Lisa, we have 2 questions real quick, and I know we're nearing
Oh,
the
sure.
end.
Sorry, I can't see them.
Ronnie and then Laquita.
So, I heard what you said about these studies and that they're sending out. I would say, as a parent of a child that's still in Denver Public Schools, I haven't seen one. And my question is around, are they making sure to get these studies out to people of color? Because
Yep.
I'm still beating a drum on that. I understand that they're saying, what do we need to fully fund our schools? What's the dollar amount? Blase, blase, blase. But again, what they keep leaving out is making sure that they're going to Black and brown people. Because in the public school system in Denver Public Schools, the vast majority of the students are Black and brown. And we have to remember that. I can't emphasize that enough. I don't mean to be yelling or getting upset, but I hear what you're saying, and I'm hearing about these, but I'm hearing about these from organizations like Colorado PTA. It's not general information that's being given out, and that's a problem.
It is.
Gotta go out to everybody, but specifically Black and brown people. And we have to look at putting these surveys out in different languages as well. We need to beat a drum about that because, I don't think a school can be fully funded without looking at every aspect and looking at the fact that a lot of the families in public schools are Black and brown.
I could not agree with you more, Ronnie, and it's one of the reasons we're trying to get this out to our partners. But you're right. I mean, what this really should be is that it should be in Friday folders. It should be everywhere. And I will talk to Tracy Rainey, who's involved in the APA study, to ask if that request has been done. But you're right. These things replicate themselves. They send out this survey to the people they know, who are the people who are not in the communities you're talking about. And so I'll talk to Tracy about it, but I completely agree and hope. And Laquita, you're up next. But through the Black Parent Network, through you're absolutely right, Ronnie. And I will try to get to the more of the root of that for this next one.
More grassroots in the Black Parent Network, because I'm not a part of the Black Parent Network. I don't know nothing about it.
Yet. They're just getting started. So Laquita?
Yes, along the lines of what Ronnie was sharing, and thank you for uplifting that, because I was going to ask, when did this survey, is this survey now being administered? Has it already been sent out? And what other ways are they trying to get it out so we can reach the voices that are left out a lot?
They reached out to me, so I've gotten a couple of emails. I don't know who else they're trying to get nonprofit partners, but I don't think that they have are connected to a mechanism to really get it out more broadly, and that is highly problematic. And so I will continue. Like I said, I will talk to Tracy about whether there's a way to make sure that this goes out through districts. But that said, even if they tell them all districts have to send it out, it doesn't mean, or can send it out, it doesn't mean that all districts will send it out. And so we should think about where we can post and what hashtags would connect to organizations that are working on equity and are connected to those. And thanks, Annalise. It is in Spanish, but there are 170 other languages spoken just in Aurora public schools alone. So it is, you got to, I appreciate the continuing drumbeat, and never let us off the hook on that. And I will try to figure out how, and if you have ideas about good ways to do it, I would like to be able to send those to Tracy. So, you know, ideas about the ways to get it out other than directly through the districts. If there are other organizations, et cetera, please let me know. And I will try to make sure this one is coming to an end. The APA one will be open for 3 or 4 weeks. So it hasn't started yet. And we have an opportunity to get that one out more broadly. So thank you for keeping that forward, to keeping that in the top of radar. Unless there's other questions, that's it. Ben, the next slide is just the link to the orientation again. And just hoping like copy those links or open those pages, and please send both to, you know, who you think is appropriate, who might be interested in fighting Amendment 80, and who has views about what full funding means, and keeping in mind that we need to make sure that we're sending it to folks who wouldn't be asked otherwise and need to be asked to get their voice in the conversation.
Thank you, Lisa. We are at 5:33, which means we're slightly over time. I went ahead and put that Public School Strong Orientation link in the chat again. So please check that out, as well as the other links that we put in the chat. I'll go ahead and one last time put the October sign up in there as well.
Ben, is that
Yeah.
the Public School Strong Orientation for Colorado on the 16th?
Yes.
Perfect.
No, I'll put that one in there again.
Okay.
Oh, I thought it was. Sorry.
Really want to direct people there.
And if people, if there are folks who are interested in getting connected and can't make that, just send them our way, please. info@greateducation.org. Thank you all. We are so appreciative of your advocacy and commitment and resilience and persistence. And we just need to find more of the folks like you all around the state, and we can keep them connected, and we can get this done, because we do need more money in our public schools, and we're going to have to work like hell to get it.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.